Neuroscience offers a clear answer. Sleep is a movie theater for an audience of one. In complete isolation, your brain assembles a unique film from fragments of personal memories, fears, and desires. It is your own private, tightly encrypted reality, inaccessible to anyone else. But what if this dogma is wrong? What if sometimes we all buy tickets to the same show? Our personal unconscious is like a well. We believe the water within it is ours alone. But deep underground, all wells draw from one vast, invisible ocean of shared images. This perspective presents science with two impossible questions. The first is a question of scale. How could it be that over 2,000 people, from Los Angeles to Moscow, independently drew a portrait of the same man they had never met in real life? The second is a question of detail. How do we explain the phenomenon of object synchronization? This occurs when groups of people describe a non-existent object with startling accuracy. For example, a chrome cube with a single red dot on its top face. These mysteries seem unsolvable. But by the end of this film, you will receive 7 keys to understanding them. This is not just a collection of theories, but a set of analytical tools that will change your perception of the boundaries of the self. We will journey from Carl Jung's classic theory of the collective unconscious to the most cutting-edge data extracted from the internet. How did an ordinary therapy session in New York trigger a global chain reaction? A patient drew the face of a stranger who had been giving her advice in her dreams. Where did this image come from if she had never seen him before? The drawing lay on a desk for several days until another patient happened to see it. He recognized the man as a character from his own dreams. It was a remarkable yet localized coincidence, but reality turned out to be far grander. In January 2008, the psychiatrist sent the drawing to his colleagues, and the website thisman.org was launched. This transformed curiosity into a global avalanche of testimonies. Over 2,000 people from Moscow to Los Angeles recognized the face. This was no longer a coincidence, but a stable global pattern. People didn't just see him, they received advice from him, feared him, or loved him. He was a living character. This forced researchers to realize that to figure out who he is, they first needed to understand what he is. The answer lay in the very mechanics of our subconscious. Theories about his identity multiplied. Some saw him as a real person with psychic abilities, others as an image of God. The simplest explanation was that it was an elaborate hoax created by a sociologist to study viral ideas. This version is convenient and returns us to the solid ground of rationality. However, it collapses against one simple fact. There are documented accounts of dreams featuring this man that predate the website's existence. Over 100 entries in paper dream journals from as far back as the 1980s contain detailed descriptions of this face. We are searching for a specific person, but we are actually dealing with a universal idea, the wise old man archetype, described by Carl Jung. Jung himself predicted that such images would surface in people's consciousness during times of crisis. But the strangest thing about this shared image is its lack of shared content. To some, he was a savior, to others, a killer. This duality is the key to its mechanism. Why did this particular face, with its thick eyebrows and ordinary features, go viral in the subconscious of millions? Why not the image of a celebrity? Psychologists explain this with the concept of an empty signifier. The man's face is neutral enough to act as a screen. Everyone projects their own figures onto it: a caring father, a wise teacher, a strict boss. The picture changes when we look at the scale of his roles. An analysis of thousands of reports revealed an astonishing diversity in his functions. For some, he was a lover. For others, a persecutor. For a third group, simply a silent observer. The conclusion: there are shared containers for dreams that we all use, but we fill them with our unique experiences. This is similar to how different cultures use the same ritual mask but imbue it with different meanings. This idea of shared containers leads us directly to the vast warehouse of human experience that one psychiatrist named the collective unconscious. So we have established a fact: thousands of people see the same face in their dreams. We have dismissed simple explanations and understood that this is not a specific person, but a universal container form. But a fact without a theory is just an anomaly, a curiosity. To turn it into knowledge, we need a system that explains where these shared containers come from and how they operate. Such a system was proposed in the early 20th century by Carl Jung. We have taken the first step in our investigation, from an anomalous fact to the search for a comprehensive system. Next, we will delve into the idea that underlies all collective dreams, the existence of humanity's subconscious internet. How could a Swiss psychiatrist, working long before the internet, have predicted the mechanism of viral image propagation in the mind? Carl Jung proposed that our psyche, like our body, inherits not only personal experience but also a shared library of images from all previous generations. We are not born with ready-made memories, but with blueprints for them. Just as everyone inherits the plan for a hand with 5 fingers, our psyche inherits blueprints for stories about the hero, the shadow, and the sage. And here, the theory ceases to be an abstraction. This library consists of structured files, archetypes. The phenomenon of this man fits perfectly into the description of the wise old man archetype. It turns out our dreams are not always personal. Jung believed that an encounter with an archetype is an important message from the collective soul. This elegant theory explained everything. But one question remained. Could this subconscious internet be detected by instruments? If archetypes are real, their traces should be everywhere. Besides dreams, where else can we find imprints of this universal code? The obvious evidence lies in myths and fairy tales. Stories of the hero trickster or a great flood appear in cultures that never had contact. But this ancient language has not disappeared. We speak it every day. The same archetypes form the basis of modern blockbusters. Luke Skywalker is the hero, Darth Vader is the shadow, Yoda is the wise old man. Over 70% of Hollywood films are built on the same 12-step hero's journey structure. The collective unconscious is the functioning operating system of our culture. But if this language is so powerful when we are awake, what is its hold on us when our consciousness shuts down? How could a single dream change the course of modern psychology? In the winter of 1909, Jung dreamt of a multi-story house. The Rococo-style living room symbolized his personal consciousness, while the medieval lower floor represented his personal unconscious. This perfectly aligned with the theories of the time. But Jung sensed there was more. He found a trapdoor and descended further into a Roman cellar, feeling the cold, damp stone walls. Then, deeper still, into a prehistoric cave filled with skulls, smelling of dust and bone. He realized the skulls in his cellar were not those of his personal ancestors, but of all humanity's ancestors. His theory was born not from intellectual reflection, but from this visceral experience. Have you ever dreamed of a house with secret rooms that don't exist in reality? So we have a powerful theory that explains this man and the universality of myths, and it is grounded in its creator's personal experience. It seems the mystery is solved, but for science, a theory without an experiment is just a beautiful philosophy. It requires numbers, protocols, and reproducible results. What if I told you such experiments were conducted? That in the 1960s, scientists seriously tried to capture telepathy in dreams and build a Wi-Fi for the mind within a laboratory setting. How do you prove that one person's thought appeared in another's dream? The task seemed impossible. One had to separate a real signal from the noise of coincidence and shared cultural codes. The Maimonides Laboratory in Brooklyn proposed a solution. The protocol was strict. One participant, the sender, sat in an isolated room concentrating on a randomly chosen painting. In another room, the receiver slept, connected to sensors. As soon as REM sleep began, they were awakened and asked to describe what they saw. But the most interesting part was the analysis. The dream reports and a set of several paintings were given to independent judges. The success rate was consistently higher than chance. A sender would look at a painting of boxers, and the receiver would dream of a fight in a ring. The results were not 100%, but for the first time they provided statistical confirmation of anomalous information transfer. These experiments were funded by the US government. But numbers are one thing, the personal experiences of the participants are another. What if among the subjects were their own Olympic champions of dream telepathy? One of them, psychologist William Irwin, consistently produced incredible results. In his daily life, he had no special abilities, only very vivid dreams. But one case shattered all notions of chance. The sender concentrated on Salvador Dali's Crucifixion, Corpus Hypercubus. Irwin woke up and described, with astonishing precision, a dream in which he saw a crucified God inside a box. In a series of 8 nights, he gave an equally accurate description 6 times. This was a fact that did not fit into the scientific worldview, and most of the scientific community chose to ignore it. It turned out to be easier to reject the fact than to change the theory. The experiments showed the phenomenon was real, but extremely fickle. And the reason for its elusiveness turned out to be the most important discovery. Why do the most striking cases of collective dreams happen spontaneously, while attempts to induce them in a lab fail. The standard scientific explanation is the problem of reproducibility. If other scientists cannot replicate a result, it means there was an error in the original experiment. This is logical. But what if the issue is not an error, but the very nature of the phenomenon? What if the collective unconscious does not submit to will? The harder we try to capture and measure it, the weaker it becomes. The laboratory environment itself, with its sensors and expectations, suppressed this delicate mechanism. The success rate dropped by 40% each time an additional layer of control was introduced. Science was trying to catch the wind with a net. It became clear that instead of trying to transmit a single image, researchers needed to study entire worlds that already exist in the public domain. So science briefly touched a mystery. It obtained statistical hints, and even astonishing individual proofs, but couldn't hold on to the phenomenon. The researchers realized their mistake was in the question they were asking. They asked, "Can an image be transmitted?" They should have asked, "Are there places we can go together?" Next, we will shift our focus from telegraphy to geography. We will journey through shared dream worlds, intricately detailed locations that exist only in our collective imagination, but are visited by thousands of real people. What if there are not only shared characters, but also shared places? Reports of visiting a dream library began appearing on internet forums. At first glance, nothing unusual, endless shelves, ancient books, a sense of ancient knowledge. This could easily be dismissed as a shared cultural code. But the devil, as always, was in the details. People began comparing dreams and found they were describing not just similar libraries, but identical halls. Over 500 independent reports described a specific hall with 3 rows of dark wood tables. Then a fact emerged that makes the coincidence hypothesis impossible. Many had seen a specific, non-existent object on one of the tables, a chrome cube with a single red dot on its top face. The existence of such worlds raises a critical question. Where are they stored, and how do we access them? How can detailed worlds exist without a physical medium? Where is the server for these dreams? Biologist Rupert Sheldrake, in his 1981 book, A New Science of Life, proposed the existence of an information field that stores the collective memory of a species. But you don't need to delve into biology to understand this. Just look at online games. The collective unconscious is the server, a persistently existing world. And each of us enters it through our avatar, our personal ego in the dream. If this metaphor is correct, then the boundaries of ourself are far more permeable than we think. This idea explains how it might work. But it doesn't explain why these worlds exist. The answer lies in their symbolism. If your dream were a location in a game, what kind of place would it be? Is the dream library a unique phenomenon? No. It is just one island in an entire archipelago. Dreamers describe other worlds, the unsettling red brick city, or the endless mall, a symbol of being lost. But if we view these worlds through the lens of Jung's theory, the scattered dots connect into a coherent picture. The library is a modern embodiment of the archetype of knowledge. The city is the archetype of society and the shadow. The mall is the archetype of emptiness. Analysis of databases showed that mentions of the endless mall as a symbol of anxiety increased 5-fold after the 2008 global financial crisis. We are not just visitors. Every new dreamer who shares their dream helps build this world for others. We are all architects of impossible worlds. This process would be impossible without one tool that has changed the landscape of our dreams. So we have established that in addition to shared characters, there are entire shared worlds that we visit in our dreams. These worlds are modern settings for timeless archetypal stories. But how did we even learn of their existence? Just 30 years ago, all these stories would have remained the unique experience of each individual. The emergence of one tool changed everything. Next, we will see how the internet became a giant network that, for the first time in history, allowed us to capture and study collective dreams, turning mysticism into big data. How could a phenomenon that had been whispered about for centuries explode into public consciousness, specifically in the last 20 years? Projects like DreamBank.net and Reddit forums for the first time allowed scattered journals to be collected in one place. The answer seemed simple. More people were given a voice. But reality hit hard when the This Man website appeared. The internet proved to be not just a collector, but a global verifier. The ability to instantly compare over 2,000 independent reports turned anecdotes into an irrefutable fact. It acted like a chemical developer, The image was always there, but only technology made it visible. And this leads us to a disturbing thought. What if this tool doesn't just reveal these patterns, but creates them itself? The most powerful tool for proving the phenomenon also became the main source of its refutation. How can one technology be both a witness for the prosecution and a witness for the defense? Viral images from the web infiltrate our dreams, creating the illusion of a collective experience. The picture changes when we apply this to this man. Thousands of people could have seen his portrait online, consciously forgotten it, and then reproduced the image in a dream as their own. This is cryptomnesia. And so, the population of a small town united by a common dream becomes a population infected by the same mental virus. The internet here is like a sieve. It can separate truth from trash, or it can sift a lie so finely that it mixes with our own thoughts. But behind the numbers and theories lies the experience of a living person, and that changes everything. Imagine a person who for decades dreamed of the same world, considering it their private secret. Out of curiosity, they type key details into a search engine and find a forum. First comes shock, then relief. They are not alone. They are not going crazy. They have found their people. However, behind the relief hid a deeper anxiety. If their most intimate experience belongs not to them but to a group, then what is truly their own? They remembered the chrome cube with the red dot in minute detail, the cold gleam of the metal, the dot that seemed to absorb light. It was their secret. Now it was someone else's forum post. And their world collapsed under the weight of one question. If my dreams are not mine, then what is? This question shatters the mystique and opens the door for the strongest opponent: cold, scientific skepticism. We have seen the internet as a giant mirror reflecting our digital hive, where individual dreams merge into a collective honey of meaning. But what if this is all a grand psychological illusion, amplified by technology? This isn't just a guess, it's a position backed by science. Next, we will subject this phenomenon to an interrogation. The prosecutor will be scientific skepticism, presenting its most compelling arguments, from glitches in our memory to mass suggestion. Prepare for a cold shower of rationality that will test the foundations of everything we have come to believe so far. Your brain is not a reliable witness, it is a skilled liar. Its primary tool of deception is cryptomnesia. This is a glitch in the memory tagging system, where the brain forgets the source of information, but retains its content. You hear a melody on the radio as a child, forget about it, and 20 years later, you compose it yourself, convinced of your own genius. This is not malicious intent, but a systemic error. Now, let's apply this to this man. 2,000 testimonies from over 30 countries are not proof of a mystical event. They are proof of mass cryptomnesia. A person briefly sees the portrait online. The brain digests this information, discards the source label, and then serves up the ready-made image in a dream. This explanation works like a virus, infecting the entire database and making it impossible to distinguish genuine experience from borrowed. But how does cryptomnesia explain myths that arose before the internet? This theory collapses when we encounter the similarity of myths among peoples separated by oceans. Here, skepticism offers another tool: cultural universals. All humans, regardless of culture, see the sun and moon, are born from a mother, and fear death. Our stories are similar because they grow from a common biology, a common planet, and common social structures like the family. Jung's archetypes are not access to another world, but a poetic description of our experience. The wise old man is a reflection of a father or mentor figure. The shadow represents our personal fears. We are looking for complex mysticism where simple psychology works. It's like wondering why all peoples build houses with roofs, without understanding that it rains everywhere. But even this doesn't explain the strangest part: the synchronization of minute, meaningless details. Why do hundreds of people describe a non-existent chrome cube with a red dot? This cannot be explained by common life experiences or cryptomnesia. Here, a combination of two effects is at play. The first is confirmation bias. After noticing a mention of the cube, our brain starts searching for it in its vague memories. But what truly shatters the myth is retroactive memory falsification. Memories of dreams are as pliable as clay. The first witness talks about a shiny box. The second, having read this, unconsciously refines their dream to a metal cube. The third adds chrome and a red dot. Their memories merge into a collective river of myth that smooths out all contradictions. We are dealing not with a collective dream, but with collective creativity. It's a game of telephone in reverse. The output is a crystal clear but entirely fabricated story. It seems the mystery is solved. Science has offered 3 weapons. Cryptomnesia explained the viral images. Cultural universals explain the ancient myths, and memory errors explain the precise details. Only ruins remain of the great mystery. But what if we've been asking the wrong question all along? What if we were trying to determine true or false, when we should have been asking, how does it work? Perhaps the skeptics are right about the mechanisms but wrong about the conclusions. What if all these glitches and illusions are not proof of deception, but a description of tools for something greater? We rise above the battle between mystics and skeptics to see the phenomenon from a new perspective, from the position of those who don't just see dreams, but weave them together. Why do deliberate attempts to induce a shared dream fail, while the most vivid cases occur spontaneously? The Dreamweaver's hypothesis provides an answer, because we are trying to consciously control what is a process of unconscious creation. This is not a library you can visit with a card, but a workshop where everyone works together. Our consciousness is not a spectator in a movie theater. Each of us is a weaver, adding our own thread of personal experience to the collective tapestry. And here, the skeptics' arguments transform from weapons of destruction into tools of creation. Yes, the internet affects dreams, but it doesn't contaminate the data. It becomes a new, powerful thread that allows us to weave more complex patterns, like this man. The skeptics describe the tools without understanding their purpose. Shared worlds and characters are not something that exists somewhere out there, but something we have collectively agreed to create. The Chrome cube was not seen, it was woven from thousands of hints and memories. And this idea of co-creating reality finds striking parallels in the most fundamental science. Are there concepts in science that hint at consciousness shaping reality? In 1927, Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg formulated the observer effect. The very act of measurement changes the behavior of quantum particles. This is just a metaphor, but an accurate one. Perhaps our collective attention on an image crystallizes it in dream reality, making it denser. But while physicists debate, practitioners act. Thousands of experienced dreamers and online communities agree to meet in a specific place in a dream, and then independently describe the details of the encounter. This is a liminal space, a third state between objective reality and subjective imagination. It is like a sandbox where we learn to build worlds together. And this understanding completely changes the personal experience of the very witness with whom we began. How does this new hypothesis change the story of the man whose uniqueness was shattered? He felt like a passive receiver of someone else's dream, asking, if my dreams are not mine, then what is? But the Weaver hypothesis flips this logic. He didn't just see a shared dream, he was one of its creators. His consciousness, his personal experience, made an indispensable contribution to this world. He didn't lose his uniqueness, he shared it. Before, he felt like a lock that a foreign key had been inserted into. Now he understood that he himself was one of the smiths who forged that key. The fear of losing individuality is replaced by the inspiration of a deep connection. His chrome cube is no longer a symbol of loss, but his personal signature on a collective canvas. We have come full circle, gathering all the keys to the mystery. All that remains is to put them together. We have come full circle, from mysterious facts, through scientific theories and cold skepticism, to the idea of us as dreamweavers. No single viewpoint was rejected, but rather integrated into a more complex picture. We received 5 keys: the fact of this man, the theory of the collective unconscious, the weapon of skepticism, the tool of the internet, and finally, the master key, the idea of co-creation. Now that we hold all these keys, what door do they open? What new understanding of consciousness, reality, and our place in it have we gained? In the final part, we will assemble them into a single, meaningful code to our shared reality. Our journey began with a single shocking fact: the face of a man seen by thousands. It seemed like a random spasm in the collective consciousness, but it turned out to be a symptom pointing to a hidden nervous system connecting us all. To understand it, we needed a language. Carl Jung provided that language back in 1934. His theory of the collective unconscious became the first key. It didn't explain what it was, but it gave us words, archetypes. And we saw how a viral image from the internet is connected to ancient myths, and how shared characters are linked to entire shared worlds. The theory was elegant, but how did science attempt to capture this elusive reality in its nets? In the 1960s, the Maimonides laboratory tried to measure the transmission of images in dreams. The results were above chance but not conclusive enough. The phenomenon did not yield to control. But then a new, global laboratory emerged: the Internet. It gathered thousands of testimonies, turning speculation into statistics. However, this same tool gave rise to its greatest opponent. Skepticism, armed with cryptomnesia and memory errors, cast doubt on the purity of all the data. We found ourselves at an impasse. On one side, a mountain of evidence. On the other, a powerful rational refutation. How could we escape this trap, where both belief and doubt seemed equally justified? The answer came with the final key: the Dreamweaver's hypothesis. It proposed moving beyond the true or false debate. According to this idea, we are not passive viewers of shared dreams, but their active co-authors. This perspective reconciled everyone. It accepts the reality of the phenomenon, uses Jung's language to describe the common patterns, and acknowledges the skeptic's point. Yes, the internet and memory do influence dreams, but they don't contaminate the data. They serve as tools for co-creation. This hypothesis also explains the failure of laboratory tests. You cannot measure a creative process from the outside when you need to participate in it. We have journeyed from the question, "What is this?" to the question, "What can we do with this?" Before you are two paths, two possible codes to reality. Despite all the keys, the central mystery remains unsolved. The final answer is not on the screen, but within you. The first path, sleep, is a window into a shared reality, a portal to an information field that exists independently of us. The second path, sleep, is an echo of the brain, an incredibly complex but entirely material illusion created by our neurons. In the comments, type one of two phrases: shared reality or echo of the brain. Let's see what map of reality our community creates. Regardless of your choice, the very ability to ask this question, to explore the boundaries of the self, is what defines us.